We continue now at the top of Daf Tes Amud Aleph Meseches Shabbos. This is Shabbos Daf 99a. We're in the middle of a brisa here. The brisa here has a new comment. It has to do with the way the Mishkan looked. V'nirin krosin bilulos kekochavim barakia. Rashi here explains V'nirin krosin bilulos milsa achrisi. This is a new statement. Shtei mechabras hayu hayirios kol achas v'achas hayirios. The curtains that were on top of the Mishkan, they were made of two different components, two different parts, two sections. One section, each section was 5 curtains, tfuros uimzu, which were sewn together b'machat with stitching with a needle. Al pnei kol arkan, along the entire length of each curtain. Uve'emtza haya mechaber bekrosim machberes and machberes. So then in the middle, these two sets of 5 were attached with krosim, with hooks. One was attached with the other. Shayu lulos besafa chitzona shel kol machberes. There were little areas where the hooks could hook into at the end of each machberes. Be'emtza mishkan, in the middle of the mishkan. Elu keneged elu, corresponding to one another. Kedechsiv makbilos halulos v'gomer. So those looked, the brisa says, kekochavim berakia. They look like stars in the sky. That's what the lulos, that's what these hooks appeared like when you looked up at the ceiling of the mishkan. Taner Rabbanu, we learned in a brisa, Yurios hatachtonos shel tchelas v'shel argamon v'shel tolas shani v'shel sheish. The Yurios hatachtonos, the lower curtains, they were made out of blue wool and purple wool and scarlet wool and linen. Velyonos, and in the upper curtains, shel naisa izim, they were made of goat hair. Ugedola chachma shenemra belyonos yoser mima shenemra betachtonos. Now the wisdom it took to make the upper curtains out of goat hair was more than the wisdom it took to make the lower curtains. De'ilu betachtonos ksiv v'chol isha chachmas leiv biyadeh tavu. When it came to the tachtonos, it says that any woman who was wise of heart, she spun it with her hands. V'ilu belyonos ksiv. But when it came to the upper curtains, it says v'chol hanashim asher nasa liban osana b'chachma tavu esa izim. All the women who, again, their hearts were filled with wisdom, they spun the hair of the goats. Betanya, we learned in a brisa, Mishum Rabbi Nechemia, in the name of Rabbi Nechemia, Shatuf be'izim, betovei minho izim. They would rinse the hair while it was still on the goat, and they would spin the hair while it was still on the goat. So it took an extra level of chachma to create those curtains. The Gemara now continues at the two dots, Shtei gezus teros, Amar Rav Mishum Rabbi Chia. Rav says in the name of Rabbi Chia, Agolos, when it came to the wagons, we saw this before, Tachtein, Uvenein, Vitzidein, Rosh Hashanah. Underneath them, between them, and at their sides was all considered a Rosh Hashanah. Amar Abaya, Abaya says, Bein Agola LaAgola, between each wagon, Kemole Orech Agola, was the same amount of distance as the length of a wagon. V'kama Orech Agola, and what was the length of a wagon? Hey Amos, it was 5 Amos. We mentioned this earlier, that the length of the wagons were 5 Amos, and that accommodated laying these stacks of the beams. So the Gemara asks, Lamali Bedalru Palgasagi. If you take a measurement of the beams, the maximum you need to fit these stacks of beams is only 4.5. Rashi here explains the question. Lamali orech hagola hey amos. Why did the length of the wagon need to be 5 amos? Ba'arbo palgasagi. It could have been 4.5. Rashi here is going to explain the different ways you could have stacked the beams. Shemisadron al rachvan. If you're going to stack them on their width, eino misadron al hey amos yoser migimel. You're not going to be able to get more than 3 stacks in 5 amos. V'harei ba'arbo mechse yachol sadron. With that, you could do in 4.5. The width of each beam was 1.5. So if you have 3 stacks, 1.5 times 3 is 4.5. And if you're going to stack them on their thickness, which was only 1 amma, so then you could say, well, maybe if it's 1 amma, I could do 5 stacks. No, so yoser midalad lo yisader. You're not going to do more than 4 stacks either. Then they have sakas makom habrichim shebe'emsa hastorm, because as we said, the way they were stacked, there were little rings sticking out into the middle, so you need a little bit of space. That for a half an amma, you can have those rings in that area. But in any case, you're only going to need 4.5. You're not going to need a full 5 amos. So why did they need the length of the wagon to be 5 amos? So the Gemara says, Kihechi de lo lidchuku kroshim, in order that the kroshim don't press against one another. Rashi says, de lo lidchuku im bola sadron al rachvan. Let's say you wanted to do it on their width, and you did exactly 4.5. They would literally be right next to each other. That could be bad for the beams. Amar Rava says, Tzidei agola, the side of the wagon. Rashi says what that means. Tzidei agola, Cholol shebein defanos lo fanim v'ove hadofen v'ove ha'ofen. We're referring to the space between the walls and the wheels, and then we're also referring to the thickness of the wall and the thickness of the wheels. So how much was that? Kimole rochav agola. That was the same amount as the actual width of the wagon. V'kama rochav agola. And what was the width of the wagon? Shtei amos umechsa. It was 2.5 amos. So the Gemara says, Lamali, what do you need 2.5 amos? Ba'amso palgasagi, 1.5 should have been fine. What does the Gemara mean with this question? Rashi says, Lamali rachva tarti upalga im mipnei shem yitztarech lahoshev min akrashim lesocha Yachnis ba'amso palgasagi v'ashkivim ba'alchudim. What Rashi means is that if you want, let's say you wanted to put the beams not on top of the wagon, lying across the wagon, but instead you wanted it inside the wagon, so you don't need 2.5, 1.5 would be fine. You could just put them on their sides, or Rashi even here says on the thickness of it, but just put it in there. You'll even have a little bit of extra space if you leave 1.5. So the Gemara says, so why don't we do that? Kihechi de lo lididu krashim. Rashi explains, Kihechi de lo lididu krashim shelo yu akrashim hamutolim la'orchan al dofnoseh l'rachva modadin v'notin l'kan l'kan. If you had a very narrow wagon, let's say only 1.5 amos wide, so then they're gonna start shaking one direction, the other. They're not gonna stay straight. Shemoshavas hakrashim kotzer. If it's narrow, mitoch shein arucha, since these are very long beams, v'yotzos l'chutz harbe, they stick out a lot from the wagon. Yichbar echad min arashim kishein modadin balichasan v'yiblu. As long as there's any uneven area which these wagons are traveling over, so different sides of the boards are going to tilt in different directions, going to fall off. You obviously need a wider base, and here the Gemara says 2.5 amos in order to carry such a long beam. So the Gemara says a final question over here. Now we know that the Rosh Hashanah, the size of Rosh Hashanah, how large or how wide does a street need to be considered Rosh Hashanah? It needs to be 16 amos. And non de gamrinon lami mishkan. Now, if we're learning that out from the Mishkan, so the Mishkan chamisrei havia, that's only 15 amos wide. When it came to the wagons, if you measure the width over here, it should only be 15 amos. Rashi here explains chamisrei havia shteho agolas aholcha zu betzadzu. If you have two wagons, we said two wagons would go next to one another. Rochav kolachas hey amos. Now each one is 5 amos wide. Harei Yud, that comes out to 10. They're 5 amos wide, as we said, 2.5 plus the 2.5 of the wheels and the thickness of the walls and the thickness of the wheels. Vehei amos revach sheben agol agol, and we said there were 5 amos between each wagon, so that's Harei Tesvav. So if you have, again, 10 amos of width amongst the two wagons, and then you have 5 amos of space between them, that only comes out to 15. Maybe you'll say it should be way more than that, because it should be the entire length of the beams. If you have two beams, each beam is 10 amos, it's 10 plus 10 should be 20. That's already 20 amos, besides the fact that you obviously can't have two wagons exactly next to each other, because the beams are going to hit one another. It's going to hold back the traveling of the agolas. This is not a good response. Because the beams were above 10 tefachim from the ground. Because the wagon was 10 tefachim high. And therefore, if we're going to try to figure out the size of Rosh Hashanah, we should only be counting the area of the agolos and the space between them, which were areas below 10 tefachim, because anything above 10 tefachim is not Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, it is not considered important in this regard. And so the Gemara is now stuck with the question. It's only 15 amos, the width of Rosh Hashanah. Why do we say it's 16 amos? So the Gemara answers, Amsa Yasera Havoy, there was an extra Amma, Davakoi ben Levi, where a ben Levi would stand, Techimeshtalfi Karashim Havinakidlu, this way he could keep the Karashim balanced in case they were going to fall. Rashi says, Tekoi ben Levi, the Meshtalfi, Zumizu Lipo Lasoch Avir Shebeneim, if they were going to fall into the airspace between them, Havinakidlu Nichnas Lebein Ha'avir, he was standing there, and he would go walk between them, he would walk between the amma between them. He would fix it. The whole way he would walk behind the wagons. If he saw them falling inward, essentially the Ben Levi they would give him that arm of space in order to fit himself in there, in order to fix the crushim if they would fall. Gemara now continues with the Mishnah Chulias Habor V'Hasela. Let's say you have the mound that's around a pit, or you have a rock. Shein Gavoin Asora V'Rachvan Arba. If they are 10 tefachim high and they are 4 tefachim wide, Hanotel Mehen V'Anosin Al Gabon. If you take from them or put onto them from Rosh Hashanah, Chayiv, you're going to be Chayiv, because that has the dimensions of Rosh Hashanah, 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim wide. And then if it transfers from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, it's obviously going to be an Issa D'Oraisa of Hotzah. Pachos Mikan Pater. If it's less than that, you are going to be Pater. The Gemara says, Lama li lemisni cholias habor v'hasela, lisni habor v'hasela. What do you need to say the chulya, the mound surrounding the pit when they would dig out the pit? The dirt that they dug out would surround the pit like a ring. Why do you need to talk about that? Just say a pit and the rock that surrounds it. So the Gemara says, Messiah Leila Rabbi Yochanan. This supports Rabbi Yochanan. To Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan says, Bor v'chulyasam mitztarfin la'asara. The bor and the chulya and its chulya combined for 10 tvachim. Let's say you have a bor that's only 5 amos deep, but the dirt surrounding it, the chulya, is 5 tvachim high. So the 5 tvachim plus the 5 tvachim is going to be 10. You're allowed to be mitzdarif. Tanya Namiach, we have a brisa like this as well. Bor b'rishus harabim. If you have a bor b'rishus harabim, amuka yod v'rach v'arba. If it's 10 deep and 4 wide, ein memalin heimen of a Shabbos. You're not allowed to fill up with it on Shabbos. We'll continue this brisa in the next video. Let's just take a look at how Rashi explains the question of the Gemara. Lama li lemisni chulias habor v'asela pshitalon the sela nakat linyan gova. Obviously, the sela is talking about height. Ubor linyan omek, and the bor is talking about depth. We've now covered height and depth. Shenoto mitochum motzi lo shasarabim. Dilin gova could go in lemorid mechulya lamata, or could go in a derach v'arba lama li lemisna klal hatana le sela. As far as the chulya, if that's height, we already know that from a sela. Elavadai lemotzi mitoch ogne bor nakat. Obviously, you're taken from inside the bor outside. The kevan da'achi u chulya lamali. What do you need to talk about a chulya for? Listen, habor la'omek v'asela legova. Just to have the bor talking about something that's deep, and that tells you that could be a rishus hayachid, and the sela, a rack or something that's sitting up high, that's for height. So the Gemara answered mitzdarfin lasar. It's to tell you that by a bor you could combine the height of the chulya and the depth to create to create a 10 tfachim deep bor. L'shavya habor rishus hayachid. That makes the bor into rishus hayachid. V'imhotzi mitoch ogen chulya chayiv. And if you take from inside the cavity of the chulya of the bor, you are going to be chayiv. And again, we will continue with Tzadi Tesam and Beis in the next video.